Houston, we have a problem. Tomorrow is the flower market and we have no flowers. So it's Friday evening. I haven't done anything all day because I don't do sun very well. So I wait till the evening till it's cooler. And we have a flower market in the morning. Now the one problem with that is we really don't have many flowers. The silver lining is it's a very small market and we're really going only to build our brand and our name rather than to sell vast amount of quantities. So I don't need to take very much. I only need to take 4 or 5 bouquets at max really. So we're going to potter around the garden and see what we can find, and then we're going to venture further afield and do some foraging. So I didn't really start selling flower bouquets till August of last year, and obviously in August there's a vast amount of stuff available in the garden. And then this year has been the first year that I've started out the season as a proper flower farm. However, I made some mistakes and the weather didn't help. So all my ranunculus and anemones and things that I thought would see me through the end of May and most of June before other things came in are gone. I've had to rip out all of the ranunculus because they're completely gone. It's been too hot, and now we've transplanted in the first of these tiny zinnias, and we have a dismal small amount of anemones left. But most of them, as you can see, aren't on big stems, so they can't be in big bouquets. Probably this blue one, these 2 pink ones, and that's about all actually can go in big bouquets. The rest have to go in little posies. So apart from those, we really only have cornflowers. We have lots of cornflowers that are starting to come in and also starting to go over already. We have a very few sweet williams. We have this beautiful pink here, a slightly sweeter pink, candy pink almost. There's a few whites. There's a couple of massive heads, but I found these don't work particularly well in bouquets. But what I'm going to do is strip off these smaller stems on the side and they will go into posies. And then there's a couple of these really dark velvety ones. But other than that, there isn't a lot. Some of my bargain basement rescue perennial plants are also starting to come in. So we have got a tiny amount of yarrow. These plants are all of this lovely pink blush. These Shasta daisies are just starting to open, but they're not going to be open by tomorrow, so we can't use those. The scabious is also coming in, but the stems are too short at the moment for big bouquets. We've got more yarrow. We've got the Bean of Bampton, which is a fantastic filler, but again, it's too small, they're not long enough. And then we've got some Gaura and some Penstemons, but again, as seems to be the theme here, all too short. So let's get picking. So we've done all the proper flowers, so now we need to forage. And one thing that's growing here is wild carrot. And I think it's really, really pretty and it makes a really good bouquet filler. And sometimes it comes in just white, but this one seems to have a sort of pinkish tinge to it. So I'm going to cut some of that and then we're going to go to the wildflower meadow field. So we have a little bucket of goodies. As you can see, it's mostly cornflowers. We've got a few sweet williams. These are the massive heads that I'm going to sort of cut off these side shoots from. But we've got a few smaller ones that are coming through. There's a couple of anemones in here, and then just a few little scabious. But I'm sure I can do something with this. Before we go to the wildflower meadow field, though, we are just going to stop by the polytunnel for a few little pieces. The first of which is this beautiful parsley. I'm loving how this parsley looks. I like this little green flower, but then as it opens, it gets this yellowy as well. So we're going to cut some of that. We're also gonna pick some of this huge wild carrot that's flowering in here. And then finally, we're gonna go and get some teasels, because these make fantastic little sculptural heads in a bouquet. Not a bad haul considering I'm not growing flowers in the polytunnel, just weeds. And then into the wildflower meadow we go. And mostly what I want in here is some nice tall open oxeye daisies, but I've also noticed some wild yarrow growing. So it's few and far between, but I need to go through the field and see if I can find some. Now it might look like there's loads of daisies in this field, but actually there's not that many that I can use. Once you start looking carefully at them, you can see a lot of them are going over. So these need to be cut out of these bunches. So I only want to use these kind of semi-perfect ones. See, even that isn't really good enough. So we'll cut that off. But it's fine because the bees and the butterflies get to enjoy all of this. I also have not spied any yarrow. It's a little bit early, hence why my actual cultivated plants aren't in flowers. I have picked a few stems from around the farm. It seems though I may have picked all that there were. Now, though cow parsley is almost over, there is a little bit that I spied up here on the way to the goats earlier. And it looks very similar to the parsley, but it has the white, whereas parsley has that kind of yellowy green. The cow parsley has this delicate white, and I think it just works really well. So we're just going to cut a few little fronds of these too. And look, I even found a tiny bit of wild yarrow. So I'm going to cut a couple of stems, so whoever gets those in their bouquet will be very lucky. So here is our little bucket of goodies. I have to say I am looking forward to later in the year when I've got some big focus flowers, zinnias, sunflowers, that sort of thing. But I still think it's a pretty bucket nonetheless. And the filler I'm using is bay, so branches of a bay tree. They hold quite well in water, although I do find if you've got really spindly ends they tend to flop, and some flowering privet. But those are both in the garden back home. So I need to take this bucket of lovely stuff home, pick the greenery. I got some privet from earlier, so here it is. This is what it looks like. But I'll pick some of that's not quite so wilty, and we'll get making these bouquets. Well, I'm back from the market and I can say success! But don't get too excited because we only made £40, which is about $45 to $50. Nobody is making a living on that. But here's the thing, I told you it was a tiny market, and actually when we went last month, I sold a grand total of 0. Nobody wanted flowers at all. It was really bizarre. So this time, people bought flowers, and they bought veg, and they bought eggs. And honestly, the whole point of doing these little markets at this stage of the farm is just to get my name out there, to start talking to people, letting people know we're here, getting people to buy a few veg. So actually, the fact that I sold some of everything is really good. And also the traffic at these markets is tiny. I probably only had 7 to 10 customers, and I made that money. And there wasn't loads of footfall, and a lot of these small rural villages have a lot of older people in it that maybe are watching the pennies, don't have £10 to drop on a bouquet. They just want to buy maybe a couple of cornflower posies and a cheap £1.50 lettuce or something like that. And so I'm looking on the bright side. As I say, I sold something of everything, so I know my product is good enough. I met more people, I talked to people about the farm and what we're doing, and I did come away with a profit. And so I think the main takeaway is I desperately need to find a larger market with a lot more footfall to get that income coming in. But that will come in time. So all in all, a good market, especially as at the beginning, I had no flowers at all. Join me in this previous video where I actually pick and then make up the bouquets for last month's market.